Hello, me from the future. Before we get into the video, I just want to say this is not professional advice. I do not advise anybody to do this rebuild the way I'm doing it. I'm doing it solely because, one, the transmission's not going to stay in the truck. The truck's going to end up being a 5-speed. I don't like the 3 gears and how high it revs on the highway, so this is for more... I want to learn how to rebuild a transmission, and I kind of want to show how I do it. I really wish I would have done something like this when I rebuilt the engine in my Dodge. Don't take this as serious advice. This is more entertainment purposes, but it can be done this way. I don't know for sure if it'll work because it's still in pieces all around me. Yeah, just enjoy the video. Do the stuff YouTubers tell you to do. The only new parts going into this will be the seal and gasket set I got from Amazon. This is a K157. It's a seal and gasket set off Amazon. Kind of comes with everything you need. Cost me about 30, 35 bucks, something like that. But anyway, cheap and easy. That's really the only cost, that and the oil. So all in all, have 40 bucks for the transmission. Call it 40 for the gaskets, around $150 rebuild. So keep it nice, simple, cheap. So gonna do something a little different. My old transmission had a crack in it. Up here on the other side, it cracked through the casing. So I went down to Kansas to go visit the Empire of Rust and got this transmission off him. This is a Sm465. I believe he set out of an 85 Chevy. Essentially all Sm465s. This casing is exactly the same. Real main difference is output shaft. Mine's a 32 spline and hangs out to about here. This one is a 10 spline and obviously sits right there. So I'm going to do kind of a, I don't want to say step-by-step breakdown of how I'm going to do this. It's, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm going to kind of put little snippets of videos here and there of just the kind of process. So like pull that cover off and I'll show what's inside there or something like that. I don't know. New to me. We'll figure this out together. Let's get into it. So for starters, these transmissions have 4 bolts holding them to the bell housing. The bell housing, you need a 19. The bolts look like that. It must be a 19 wrench. You can't get a socket in here and it's hard to get it in there, and the same on the other 2 sides. So, because I'm me, I forgot to grab a 19. So I went out to my local Napa and bought a set that had a 19 because an individual wrench there was like 20 bucks and that whole set was 20 bucks. Make that make sense. Okay, so first things first, gotta check, see if we got oil. Easiest way for me to do that, since I don't exactly have a very good way to drain the oil, is pull this cover off. It looks like 6 14 millimeters. And because I'm me and I don't want to do it by hand, got the impact gun. And because the seals look like they're still okay, I'm going to get a screwdriver and a lateral force driver. We're going to see if I can't get this cover popped off. And now that we got it apart, it looks as though... Focus. Like I said, I don't want to focus, but it looks like we got a little oil left in there, so nothing terrible. Should drain out pretty easy. But obviously going to have to clean this all up. So we'll get that cleaned up. Well, I guess we'll get everything torn apart, and then we'll get this all cleaned up. And then I got to pull 8 14 millimeter bolts off to get the shifter housing pulled off. Okay, and then the way you get this off is you pull and you wiggle. And I cannot describe to you the smell that I'm smelling right now. It is like overwhelming gear oil right now. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know much about transmissions, but I don't think that's supposed to look like that. Now, I'm not worried about any of this. I just find it cool because all of my internals are coming out of my own transmission and going into this housing. Okay, so the rest were 14s. It looks like the 4 bearings or 4 bolts up front are half. And I don't have a half inch, so I'll do them by hand. And that actually just slides right. Ooh. Well, that's a snap ring. That shouldn't be doing that. Oh. Yeah, so the videos I watched, the guy said to get a rubber mallet and just beat on this up and down. Okay, hopefully this will stay, but the guy I watched on YouTube, because I'm YouTube certified, is you take a rubber mallet and you beat up and down on this. Well, in the first take of this, I could just... Oh, well, now it doesn't want to do it. There we go. Okay. There. That came out. Now, because I'm fairly certain the piece on this broke off, there is a flat spot on here that you need to have pointed down, and I could not find that flat spot. So I'm fairly certain it broke off. Ooh, the bearing came out too sweet. I didn't even think of that. But so it'll come out easier. The flat spot on, I believe, this gear, like I said, I don't know, it was broke off or I couldn't find it. It needs to be pointed down and then it just pulls right out. Okay, and the other thing is, while I'm looking at this, I don't know how well you can tell, but up here is worn a little more than down here. So to build this transmission, I'm going to be taking the good parts between the two and making them into one. So one good out of two, if that makes sense. Okay, the next thing is, I realized after I started undoing that, you should have 4 of them little blade screws holding that cover in. And then I'm going to figure out how to pull that off after watching another YouTube video, which I will link those videos in the description that I saw of the guy tearing down and rebuilding. He seems like he really knows what he's doing, because he well, I guess not suggested, but told me, not me in particular, to use the correct tools and not just a hammer and screwdriver. Okay, so I was just cleaning around here and I just saw this. So all you gotta do is just get right up along this lip with a screwdriver and just pry them out. Okay, and the way he showed to get these, or this bearing out, and I think this one as well, is there is a special tool that once you pull these snap rings out, clamps down right in here. And it's kind of like a 2-jaw puller. I'm going to try my 3-jaw puller, but it grips on that groove on the bearing and then it just pushes out off of here. Same with that. Okay, and to get those snap rings off, all you need is just a little set of pliers like that. And then 3-jaw puller. Looks like it's gripped in there decently well. So, I guess I'll know once I get my wrench on there and hopefully get them turned off. Now, I don't remember if he did this or not, but all of these were bent in. That one I got in there, marred that up a little bit. But again, I'm going to be taking the best of the two, so there's some leeway with what I'm doing. But for reference, don't do what I'm doing, because it's the wrong way. Okay, and after looking at it a little closer, this is threaded on here. So those probably do need to come off, and that's probably what was stopping me from pulling this bearing off. But yeah, you want to bend all them tabs out of the way, and then that should come off. And then hopefully he pulls right out. Okay, yeah, so as soon as I got that ring off, that came right out. So, I found my workaround. You don't need a highly specialized tool. You just need a 3-jaw puller and a third hand impact. Okay, and because this thing is stupid heavy, or at least for me, it's stupid heavy, how you get the main gear out is you tip up. So this part was hanging out right about here or so. You just pull him back slightly, tip him up so you can get that front end above this lip. and then you pull, and as you're pulling up, you pull out and tip up as you do it, and it should just slide out. These gears, I think the guy called them your reverse gear. I have no idea. That'll fall off. It's fine if it falls off. Just slide them back on. Yeah, simple. Okay, so there was a second snap ring up here. He was an absolute pain. I would get one side off and then the other side would stick, so I'd tap on the inside of this and that would stick on the other side. So what I ended up doing was I got those pliers, spread them apart, got a screwdriver under there and pried him up. And then as soon as I pried him up, I made sure to get him up over this edge, grabbed a pair of pliers, and then just pinched and twisted him off. I would not recommend doing that because, well, actually do not do that at all, because that's bent that snap ring all out of place. I'm going to have to hope my other transmission, that one comes off well, because I'm not going to have a second one, and I need to at least try to save some of the locking hardware. Okay, so slight issue with this bearing. Nothing major, but this bottomed out without that spacer on there, so if for whatever reason, I have no idea what 3-jaw puller this is, but if you're using one, you may want something on the end just to get that bearing off the back. And then oh, okay, that actually slid right out of there. So I got to figure out how to pull that gear out, because it looks like that has to come out so these can come out. But I have no idea if that's good or not. I hope it's good, but if it's not, then I'm going to be out of luck on the front side of this. Okay, so it looks like you just need a punch of some sort to get in on this side. That's where that end of this shaft is going to sit, but you punch him, and yeah, he just pulls right out. I wasn't sure if he's going to pull out or not. Oh, yeah, he wouldn't have gone through the other way. So the way to do it is to punch it out from the inside of the case out. I took like maybe 3 or 4 kind of half decent swings with a real tiny hammer. It's like 6:30 now. I started on this at 5, and I took about 40 minutes worth of that time to watch videos to figure out what I was doing. So about an hour or so you can have this pulled apart if you really get down to it. The only thing that has to come out of this yet is that bearing. So once that bearing is out, I'm pretty well done with this portion, and I'll be ready to start on the next. But for getting that out, the guy had a special tool. He ground down so you can get down into those grooves there. And then he'll basically pull or press this bearing out, pull it out using that tool while that shaft is still in there. So I'm actually going to press this out. 1, because I don't care about this bearing, and 2, because I have a press and it'll make it a lot easier. Okay, and actually I was able to just get him to sit on that edge and press him straight out. Okay, now that I've got my other transmission pulled apart, I am ready to start putting this one back together, and ran into a pretty, what I thought at first a severe issue, because we have 2 different bearing sizes, and if we go ahead, lay him down, my bearing, it's on there real nice. The bearing out of the transmission I picked up from Empire Rust does not go on there. This diameter, I haven't measured it, but it is bigger. So, went and looked at this one, made sure, took a set of calipers on all these gears, measured them all, they all match up just fine. And obviously, since that was the one out of the transmission, that just slides right on there. So, that one's getting thrown in place of that one. So I don't have a real good way to record while I put this back together, so same deal as when I'm tearing it down. But to get this gear in, what you gotta do is you gotta make sure this big gear is tipped up towards the top. And you'll slide them down through this hole, walk them down, make sure this set of gears here stay in front of here. That way it doesn't bind up and he just drops right in. And then with this one here, all you got to do is just opposite of taking it out. Instead of punching it out through this side, I got myself a rubber mallet, hit up here until that went flush with the case, and then just make sure he slides back and forth. Pretty simple. Or at least it's pretty simple when you put the gear in. The real trick is getting this centered so you can put your bearings on. So I got to figure out what's going to be easier. Honestly, it's probably going to be putting in this guy on the other side, because I at least know the shaft will set down in there while I try to press him in. But that's going to be easiest for me to do it. I know they have some sort of special centering tool or something or the other. Like I said in the videos I watched, the guy had all sorts of specialty tools, but this is showing you how to do it without those tools. So probably what I'll end up doing is I'll get the transmission set so that shaft on the other side sets right in here, and I'll go ahead and press that bearing in, and we can go from there. I've moved that shaft back. See if I can't get it. So he sets down in the hole in the bottom. I'm going to set the bearing here. I'm going to center him up on that because that's not quite centered yet, but I'm going to make sure that's centered up, get him about even, make sure down in there. I got a wide angle lens, so it looks like it's lined up, but it's not. But get that set down in there, so once that does press on, you gotta go slow and make sure these roller bearings line up on that shaft. Okay, so I couldn't get them lined up because the pin on the underside holding in whatever that gear that sits over here is in the way. So he is very, very off center. So how I'm compensating for that is 2 fingers on there and just very, very little pumps till I bottom out. And then I've still got plenty of room, so I didn't damage any of the rollers, but I'm close enough now that I can actually get kind of on either side of it and press it down slowly that way. Okay, and now it looks like I've lucked out. So, went on the side here, so when he bottoms out, I know it's flush. But I still have room between that shaft and the bearing, so I got room to work with now. So it'll be a little easier, so I can flip the transmission over and get that other bearing pressed in and have it hopefully somewhat centered, or else it'll center up as I'm going down. But the issue I run into now is I don't have, I know for a fact, I don't have anything that's that big around. So I'm going to have to either go on the inner race or I'm going to have to get some plates and do some MacGyvering. But for me, it'll probably be 20-30 minutes. For you, it'll be half a second. And I just got to pressing it in. I was doing something very, very frowned upon. I was going double sockets on the inner race. Yes, I know. It's a terrible sin to press on the inner race. Oh my God. But as I was doing that, I was getting some side-to-side shift. And then I realized, what's holding up that rear bearing? Well, absolutely nothing. And I'm pretty sure you can see it from here. But, yeah, you're welcome for the great camera angle. That bearing has pressed itself out slightly. Because how many people know this? But you push down on a shaft that you're pressing something on, and it's essentially just a solid shaft, and you don't have anything supporting it, it's going to push everything down, including the bearing I just pressed in. So, that's something I didn't know I had to do, but now I do, and now I got to figure that out. Okay, so that was a lot more simple than I thought it was. All I simply did was just stick the end cap on, press it in. But what I'm going to do next is, once this bearing is pressed in the rest of the way, I'm going to pull that cap off again, and I'm going to double check, make sure that I didn't press that bearing out too far. So what I'll do is I'll get the snap ring, get him put on, press him down the rest of the way, then open it up and double check my work is all I'm doing. And looking a little closer at that, I am going to have to pull that other cover because there's supposed to be a snap ring slot here, and there is just enough space. Yeah, you can tell just barely if I block out the light. Right at the top of that gear here is just enough room for a snap ring slot. So I'm going to flip this upside down, set it on a couple of plates, and then press it from the other way, and I should have that bottom set of gears in. Now, my friend did bring up a good point. Connor, I co-host with him on his channel, LSS Industries. I'm just full of shout outs for this video. The LSS Industries, he reminded me of the fact that these gears did not wear with my main set, so there is a very, very strong possibility that this will howl. But again, this is getting 5-speed swapped at some point, so if it blows up on me, that just means I gotta do the swap sooner. Well, that's an interesting development. The bearing slid out. I might need to use the old bearings on this because I don't think that's supposed to happen. Well, I have no idea if the camera can pick it up or not, but these bearings have a pretty good catch in them. So I don't think those are going to work. That one's good. This one, yeah, there's a catch there too. Right. I picked that one up better, but yeah. So the only one is probably that larger bearing. So I gotta make mine work somehow. Should be interesting. So got that all put in, and we are spinning pretty easy. So now time for the start of the not so fun stuff, because eventually I'm gonna have to put these in, little needle roller bearings in here. And the way the guy did it is he used transmission assembly lube. I don't have that. I got motor assembly lube, so we're going to use this instead. I have no idea if this is bad for the transmission or not. It's an Sm465. It probably won't care, but I would recommend getting the correct stuff. But this is what I'm going to use because, like I said, I'm in a pinch. Need to get it done. So that's how I'm going to do it. Getting this bearing on, the way I'm doing it is the wrong way. But again, it's the way I'm going to do it. So all you keyboard warriors, here's something for you to get angry about. Just going to slowly walk him on till he bottoms out up against here. I'm going to slide him in place, and I'm going to set the transmission in the press again, long side down. I'm going to get a bar, and I'm going to press in on here, holding this bearing down so that shaft gets pressed all the way through. Again, wrong way to do this. Don't do it. It's the wrong way, but I'm going to do it because I can. I know everything about this is probably making a lot of people very angry and very nervous, but it'll work. It's a Sm465. It's like the Ford 300 of transmissions. You just can't kill them. You know, I forgot these bearings are kind of nice because they just slide in there. Again, no idea if that's good or not. I'm willing to bet it's probably not. But he's not turning. Okay, so I am on to the needle bearings now. And what I've done is I've just put a kind of halfway thick layer of that engine assembly grease. And what that's hopefully going to do is hopefully hold those needle bearings in place so I can put them in. But I'm not counting on it, so this is what I expect to take the longest out of this entire rebuild. I guess we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I have no idea if that's entirely too much grease or not, but I am going to go off the logic of the more grease the better, because that's essentially all the grease that bearing's going to see, or at least that's my thought process behind it. So I got them caked. They're all in there, packed in nice. I am backtracking quite a ways. I pulled both the bearings out on this this transmission, so I can get this guy in easier. By the way, that's the flat spot I was talking about at the beginning of the video. But how this goes is this flat spot fits over the top of that opening there with the gear. And because I'm not at all confident in those needle bearings staying in, I need as much room to work around with that I can. And those bearings were stopping me from dropping this entire gear down. So I'm going to drop it all down so it gives me that extra half-inch of room I need to actually get those bearings to seat on there halfway decent. Okay, so a couple things. One, I almost forgot this gear. Two, he's set in place. I didn't hear any bearings fall. I'm going to slowly press it, and as soon as I feel any sort of tension, I'm going to check and see whether or not I'm set in there right. Yeah, make sure you have some 3 slots in here. Make sure those go over those slots there. That's the best way to tell which way it goes if you forgot, because I forgot. And I about put it on backwards, which wouldn't have worked, but still, if you forget, the slots go down. Okay, and then I decided I was going to throw on the snap ring as well. But more starter parts coming in clutch. Right there, fits just perfectly. Almost like it was made for it. But I know I could press on there and be fine, but I'd rather not chance it. So, now, moment of truth. That's not gripping anything. I don't know if that's good or not. Hey, I'm a genius. Of course it's not going to feel right. I wonder what I forgot to do. Okay, and we have motion everywhere. I don't feel any binding, I don't feel any sticking, nothing like that. Real nice and smooth. So, as far as assembling the transmission, everything's gone fine so far. A couple minor hiccups, having to pull the bearings out and do a couple other odds and ends, just mainly backtracking on stuff I thought I was done with but wasn't done with. I got it done, or well, mostly done. I still have to get the shifter assembly on and button it up, but for the most part, it's back together. Everything's spinning as it should. Nothing's binding up. I see this as a win. Well, I see the build as a win. My back is not going to like it because now I have to move him from here to there. Which, I mean, isn't far, but it's far enough that I'm not going to enjoy it. So now that I got this plate on, I'm not worried about this shaft falling out anymore. That's where I'm going to call it for all the work I'm doing in the shop. The rest of this I want to do with Connor. That way I'm not too far into it, so if I got to pull it apart again, I can. but I'm fairly certain all I gotta do is cover, put the seals on, throw it in the truck. So next time you see me, which in your time would be, again, half a second or 10 seconds, however long it takes me to stop talking, I'll be back out at the farm. So in the form of YouTube magic, here we go.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.